Hi everybody, it's Colin Ellis here. Welcome to another episode of the Culture and Coffee podcast. It is Monday, the 6th of September, 2021. How was your weekend? How was it? It was Father's Day here in Australia, although I have to be honest, we don't really do Hallmark days in our family. We're a bit weird. I'm not sure it's weird. Is it a Hallmark day? I don't think it is actually, is it? I remember reading about Father's Day. And I'm pretty sure the genesis of it is, and I'm trying to think back here, it's somebody who attended a mother's, I'm going to have to look this up, aren't I? This is great for a podcast, isn't it? Me Googling something. Somebody who attended a Mother's Day, I think, and thought there should be a Father's Day. Hang on a second. Father's Day. Let me just go. Here we go. Yes, here we go. In 1909, Sonora Smart Dodd, who along with her 5 brothers was raised by her father alone. After attending a Mother's Day in church, she convinced the Spokane Ministerial Association to celebrate Father's Day worldwide. There you go. That was in 1909. Interesting fact here. I went to Spokane a couple of years ago and spoke at a conference there. Beautiful people and a lovely part of the world as well. So there you go. That's the genesis of it. But we don't really do it. Although my wife says I'm a great dad, which is very kind of it. So she bought me whiskey, chocolate and books. So if that's the way we don't celebrate, like the kids don't care. Like my son didn't even acknowledge it. He didn't even say anything. My daughter was pretty chuffed about it and she sorted a brunch out, which was nice. Anyway, how was your weekend? What did you get up to? If you're a father, did you celebrate it? Did you get a card? Did you get whiskey? Whiskey. I like coffee in the morning and whiskey in the evening. That's generally how my days are. Actually, that makes it sound really bad. Like I drink every night, which I don't. I don't drink on a Monday through Friday. No, through Thursday generally. Should get on with the podcast, really, shouldn't I? This week's coffee is a Chiapas from Mexico, from Central America, which is roasted by Jasper Coffee in Collingwood. I'll come back to those guys in a minute. It's got a malty cinnamon taste, apparently. Oh wow, yeah, that's a real malty taste actually. That is that's really quite different. Yeah, that's really nice. It's really nice. Jasper Coffee, interesting story about Jasper Coffee is they're not like the hipster brands you get here in Melbourne. So even though they're kind of roasted in a really hipster area, what's considered to be a hipster area of Melbourne, they're not really. And I think it's because the ownership is they're a little bit older, the people that own and run the business. And I'm not saying hipster good, everything else bad. It just doesn't. They just don't have the profile that some of the other brands do. But I have to say is that they are the first and only coffee company in Australia, I think I'm right in saying, who are a B Corp. Now, a B Corp is an organisation that balances purpose and profit. And not long after I arrived in Melbourne, actually, I was involved in the conscious capitalism movement. It's all about balancing purpose and profit. So you kind of want to do good in the world, but recognise that, you're still a business and you've got to make money. And so, I'd urge you to go and have a look at the work that Jasper do, jaspercoffee.com. They're a collaborative, community-based. They support growers, like lots of the coffee companies do, highly sustainable practices. So I think that's awesome. And not only is it awesome that they're doing all this stuff, it's awesome that they're a B Corp because it's a massive process to go through. It's interesting the amount of paperwork you have to complete to become a B Corp, a sustainable company. So yes, from Jasper Coffee today. Now this week, one of the things that I wanted to mention on the podcast before we get to the topic is that this week is RUOK Day. So RUOK Day is the 9th of September. And one of the positives, if I can say positive things to come out of the pandemic is mental health is now front and center. It's one of those things that I don't think we've taken seriously enough in the workplace. In fact, I know we haven't. I know for a fact that we haven't. You can put some of it down to old-fashioned attitudes, of course you can. But I would say that I guess the importance of mental health has really come to the fore in the last 10, 15 years. Things like psychological safety, which I might talk about on a future podcast, actually. I've talked about this in the past, is that, we never used to talk about it. Certainly I never used to talk about it when I was starting work, but you always knew when you felt in a safe environment. So it's great that we're talking about these things, and mental health has been a real challenge throughout the pandemic and continues to be perfectly honest with you, for many, many people. So we have a day every year called RUOK Day. I think the goal of every organization, and hopefully your organization is doing something for RUOK Day. If not, hopefully this podcast will spur you to do something around RUOK Day. What you really want to do, though, is to make every day RUOK Day. And I think the kind of banner that the RUOK Day uses is a conversation that could change a life. And the theme this year is, are you really okay? Like, are you really okay? And it's really digging into, kind of asking the question that, unlocks a conversation to really, really find out. So I think every day should be Are You Okay Day. If you're not familiar with it, there's a lot of information available on the website, which go and have a look on Are You OK. If you just Google Are You OK, so the letter R, the letter U, ok.org.au. So that's in Australia. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. You should definitely have a look at this. These conversations are important, and it's based around 4 elements. The 4 elements is literally asking, "Hey, are you okay? Hey, just checking in. Are you okay?" And then listen. And I think, listening is one of the hardest things. It's one of the things that we're not very good at doing as human beings. So just listening to what they have to say, encouraging action, and then checking in to see how they're doing. Of course, quite often when you ask someone, "Oh, are they okay?" they'll say, "Yeah, I am," or "I'm really busy." That's the default. I'm publishing a video this week on really busy, and things you can say. So keep your eye out for that instead of "Are you busy?" You have a look on the YouTube channel for that. So are you okay? And I think, the more you get to know someone, the easier it is for someone to open up and to talk to you. So yes, it's Are You Okay Day this week. And so ask your colleagues, are they okay? Are they doing okay? Are they really okay? Is there anything they need? Is there anything that they want to talk about? Because I think, we've all got a responsibility to look after each other in and out of work. Okay, so this week's podcast is all about values. And values are a bit like purpose. They're kind of en vogue for organizations to do. The little boxes that organizations feel that they need to tick. But I guess the caveat is, just because a culture says, or an organization says, that it's got a set of values, or it states publicly that we're values driven, it doesn't actually make it so, if that makes sense. It's just like me saying, I'm really great at playing the piano. It might be true, but it's only when I'm tested that we find out whether I am or not. And I'm not. Rubbish. So I can play chopsticks. That's about it. Chopstick. Yeah, it's that. And so values, much like everything else, it's one thing to say that you've got a set of values, and it's another thing to practice them on a daily basis. And again, these are exercises that I run with organizations, or else I build them into my workshops. I've got 2 culture workshops this week. 2 virtual culture workshops this week, and both organizations have what they would call a strong set of values. But unless employees understand what it means to practice them on a daily basis, and then crucially, until they see senior leaders practice them on a daily basis, you never become kind of this values-driven organizations. And there should be things that are seen. They should be evident every day. I like to say that values are lived, not laminated. I think organizations are very, very good at coming up with values, and there's a process for doing it, right? There's a process for doing it. And like everything in culture, is that if the people who are part of the culture are involved in the creation of it, then you get immediate buy-in, you get immediate engagement because it's the culture and they were involved in the creation of it. If you tell them what the values are, if you tell them what the culture is, there's less engagement. So you can't just ram this stuff down people's throats. These are our values. We live these every day. Unless senior managers are doing it, unless the staff have been involved in them, it's very, very hard to get the buy-in. So, that's the first thing. And then the second thing is having done the exercise, they just get laminated or stuck on a wall or put on an email footer or something. And again, there's lots of good intent there, don't get me wrong. But actually what we want to see is kind of coming through in the behaviors. So it's important if you have a set of values that you're really clear on what they actually mean. Right? So, what does it mean for me to demonstrate it on a daily basis? So for example, if your organization, let's say, has a value of like be human every day, okay, which is pretty good value to have, be human every day, and then says, part of being human every day is bringing your authentic self to work every day. That's kind of good, but it doesn't really describe the value. It hasn't really described how you actually practice that. Also, what if the authentic version of you is being a bit of a dickhead? I mean, you get them every now and again. I mean, obviously not you because you're listening to this podcast. There's no dickheads listening to this podcast. Because then you'd be actively working against the value. But be human every day, kind of what are the behaviors that we expect from you on a daily basis? And so, as you can imagine, with the books that I do and the programs that I run, there are lots and lots of research on values. And so there was some research done in 2017 called Corporate Culture Evidence from the Field by researchers Graham Harvey, Popadak and Rajgopal. And they said that cultural values are ideals employees strive to fulfill. Right, whilst the cultural norms are the day-to-day practices that reflect the values. So I really, really like that. So this is about me getting up in the morning, seeing the values and saying, they're the kind of things that I want to achieve today. And then the kind of day-to-day practices that we have within our culture is the way that we reflect the kind of human being that I am. Because values, by definition, are principles or standards of behavior. The standards of behavior. So this is about you bringing your own values to the organization and then contributing to something bigger than yourself. So axiology is the theory of value. And so there's contributory value. So this is being good as part of a whole. So this is you deciding what kind of values you have as a human being. And then the final value is being good as a whole. And this is you being part of the team. So contributory value is this is who I am and this is what I'm going to contribute. And the final value is us as a team doing our bit to uphold the corporate values. So hopefully that makes sense. And values are kind of in everything that you do. So there's a great quote from Elvis, right? Let's get this Elvis quote in there. And so Elvis Presley, for those of you who know Elvis, does everyone know? I don't know. I feel like, generationally, the Beatles and Elvis, we're probably at that tipping point now where people are like, who? Old people. So Elvis Presley said, values are like fingerprints. Nobody's but the same. I should do this in an Elvis accent soon. Let's see if I can do this. Values are like fingerprints. Nobody's are the same, but you leave them all over everything you do. If anyone from Elvis's estate is listening, yes, I am available for hire. I actually did a speech at the Graceland Hotel in Memphis. It's great. It's pre-COVID. I flew to Memphis to do a speech at the Graceland Hotel. Awesome conference. One of those conferences that you speak at. And obviously I was there and I just spent the whole day in and around the conference talking to delegates. Fabulous event at the Graceland Hotel. So not only did I get to see Gracelands, actually, so Gracelands was amazing. And I took my dad, who's a massive Elvis fan from his youth. So he had a whale of a time. But actually the highlight of the trip, as well as the keynote speech at the conference, was we went to the Civil Rights Museum in Memphis, which frankly was life-changing. So anyway, if you're ever in Memphis, Yes, go to Gracelands and see Elvis's gaudy house. Um, but the Civil Rights Museum is unbelievable. But anyway, values like fingerprints, right? Nobody's saying leave them over everything that you do. So they should represent who you are as a human and who you are as a business. They should never really state the things that you should do by default. I remember going into a bank and they had their values on, like, it was a beautiful building, like, so many floors, and you had this big atrium, and every floor there was like values, you could see them visibly, and one of them was ethical. And I'm like, yeah, you have to remind your people to be ethical every day. Like, that should be just something that happens. And people are very, organizations, because they want to tick the box, they never do this kind of exercise properly. And they come up with, things like collaborative is like, well, yeah, you need to do that. That's something that you need to do. Customer focused, right? Okay. Because if you're not, you're going to lose business. Fun, like, telling people that you're going to be fun. Yeah, so they're not very good, and there's so many examples of organisations that would call themselves value based that would just work. Like Enron is the best example that everybody uses. Like Enron, I even know what they are. So Enron's core values were communication, respect, and integrity. Right. So these are Enron's core values. And we all know how Enron ended up. They basically lied, defrauded people, then covered it up and covered it up again, refused to be open about their own accounting practices. So basically did none of the things that they said that they actually valued. There was Volkswagen was another one who, kind of had these, I think it was like customer focus, renewability, sustainability, and then completely and utterly lied about emissions and falsified tests and all of these kinds of things that they did. So Maitland Group in the UK did a study of the FTSE 100 companies and found that three values crop up continually, and they're integrity, respect, innovation. And again, I want to make the point, right, is that they're not wrong. You've just got some work to do to actually define what they mean. I also think as well, when it's one word, it's hard to know what the value is. So if you take an organization like Atlassian, they've got 5 values, which is open company, no BS, build with heart and balance, don't F the customer, play as a team, be the change you seek, and they are value statements, right? Which I love. So if we're talking about building with heart and balance, then what are the behaviors that you're expecting from individuals as part of that? That includes being respectful. So don't talk over the top of other people. Make room for cognitive dissonance. You want that healthy debate, that healthy challenge. You're going to look everywhere for ideas. You want to make sure that there's a delineation between when you're in work and when you're not in work. You want to embrace people's passions and ideas, but also be firm about what you're doing and what you're not doing. These are, hopefully you can get a sense of, these are all practical things that individuals can do to demonstrate the value of building with heart and balance. And so values, it works best when there are employees involved and when there's statements about what the organization stands for. There's a local organization here called Culture Amp. They do employee listening tools. Their values are have the courage to be vulnerable, learn faster through feedback, trust others to make decisions, and amplify others. And so again, you get a sense that these are real statements about what the business values. They're not communication, respect, integrity. They're not those single words. They actually describe they're kind of way markers for this. As an organization, this is who we are. This is what we stand for. Zappos, I went to Zappos pre-COVID. Zappos are an online shoe retailer. They've got one of the best cultures in the world. They're based in Las Vegas. And they've got 10 values. And they're over everything. They've got merchandise that they sell that staff can earn tokens for. But I think, when I think about, because I asked the late Tony Shea, the CEO, I said, 10 values, is that too many? like there's a collective intake of breath. Like, who's this guy challenging Tony about the values? So I was like, oh, it just feels like a lot, right? 10 values. I was like, is it too many? And he said, as a company and as a group of people, they really embrace what we stand for. He said, they undertook this entire organization exercise to build the values, and these were the things that came through strongest. And he said, well, we didn't want to chop any just for the sake of it. So their values, and again, representative of their business. This is just a snapshot of them from what I can remember. Create fun and a little weirdness. I like that. So it was about creating fun. It wasn't being told that it was fun. It was up to you as a manager to create fun within your team. Build a positive team and family spirit. And he talked about this. There's a fine line between kind of integration and separation. He said, we when people need to work on their own, we want to give them that space. He said, but we believe in work-life integration. We're part of a family. Be passionate and determined. Do more with less. And I asked the question of the chief financial officer. I can't remember his title, but it wasn't chief financial officer. That's how I remembered it. And I said, well, do more with less. That sounds quite kind of, corporate. He said, we never want to be a business that has to do restructures. We never want to be a business that has to cut our cloth. And he said, we can't predict some of the kind of economic things that happen. He said, he said, that day might come. He said, but we always want to be looking at our business and asking ourselves, is it fit for purpose? He said, and there's positives and negatives to that. And he said, we always want to create the kind of environment where people can be as productive as they possibly can. And I just, for me, that really brought through the essence of the values, that if you're asking people to live them every day, then you should never do transformation programs. People like Atlassian, they don't do transformation programs. They do subtle tweaks here and there based on the values that they have. And then they use those values to hire people. They want to bring in the kind of people who understand the behaviors that are required to contribute to those values such that the organization can move forward. So hopefully that's given you some insight into values, what they are, what they're not, and how to do them well. Ultimately, though, as an organization, like Elvis said, they are your fingerprints. You leave them everywhere. And if you're a senior manager, remember that you've got a responsibility to demonstrate what those values look like on a day-to-day basis for everybody else. Otherwise, don't expect other people to do it either. Hope you've enjoyed today's podcast. If you'd like to drop me a note, if there's anything you'd like me to talk about, feel free to do so at cde@culturefix.xyz. Otherwise, remember to ask someone if they're okay, and have a fabulous week.